Start the seed of consciousness. Stop building your own cage.
Welcome to today's episode. What we're diving into today is incredibly fascinating. We're going to explore an ancient text written in the form of a dialogue. This material is absolutely mind-blowing because it completely shatters our modern understanding of suffering, the endless mental loops we get stuck in, and even the very nature of reality itself. This isn't some dry, tedious philosophical theory. It behaves more like the original source code capable of hacking the operating mechanisms of our brain. You know, we often feel completely trapped by our external environment, as if we've run out of options. But this text points straight to the core, showing us that it is actually our own hands that built the very cage we're trapped in. To challenge your perception of reality, I want to start by asking a fundamental question. Think about it when you are eating your absolute favorite meal. Does the objective concept of deliciousness actually exist in the universe? Or is it purely an illusion manufactured by our own brains? Hold that question in your mind for now, because the answer coming up will absolutely shock you. The text provides a super intuitive, almost jarring example. Imagine what purely objective reality looks like. It's like grass in a cow's stomach, mixing with gastric juices, digesting and fermenting. It is entirely a neutral, physical phenomenon, right? But here's the magic: the moment human subjective definition is added, that exact same substance, even boiled together with the fluids from the stomach and intestines, suddenly transforms in some people's minds into a highly praised gourmet herbal soup. Honestly, if you hadn't predefined it in your head as delicious, it would be absolutely unswallowable. You might even think it tastes worse than mud. This perfectly demonstrates the massive gulf between objective reality and our subjective definitions. This brings us to our first section, the illusion of definition. Let us see how all of this constructs our suffering. Actually, the most critical point is that things themselves have absolutely no inherent good or bad. Everything is fundamentally neutral. It is we ourselves who, through endless and unconscious definitions, weave the reality before our eyes, thereby manufacturing all of our pain and joy. You define it as delicious, and it truly becomes delicious. You define this piece of clothing as yours, and it becomes yours. The mind is the root of the world. The source of everything lies entirely within your definitions. Moving into the second section, let us look at the architect behind the scenes, what we call the seed of consciousness. Since the power of definition is so immense, you must be curious who exactly is behind this relentless stream of defining. In the text, this is referred to as sheet consciousness. Mind you, consciousness is not some passive memory or thoughts quietly sitting in your brain. Not at all. It is a highly aggressive, proactive force. The text calls it a seed. Why a seed? Because it possesses a fierce vitality. It desperately grows, extends outward, and wildly grasps and craves. Your eyes always want to seek out beautiful visuals, and your mouth always wants to taste novel flavors. This is your consciousness expanding outward like crazy. The original text, the Shangxi Jing, directly compares consciousness to a gust of wind. Look at when it has no physical form. You can't see it or touch it. You certainly can't call it a solid. Yet when a gale force wind blows, its destructive power is enough to tear through anything, uprooting massive trees and ripping down houses. Your consciousness is exactly the same. It absolutely has enough destructive power to turn your life completely upside down. So let us break down how the seed of consciousness grows and traps us in an endless loop of insatiable desire. Step E. You first define something as good. Step R. Compounded by your underlying afflictions, you begin to crave it endlessly, giving rise to greed. Step C. To satisfy this greed, you begin to invent infinite variations of it. For instance, a single way of eating turns into thousands of ways to eat. Desire becomes infinitely amplified. Step C. Finally, when you cannot get it, or when someone blocks your path, you plunge into deep suffering, agitation, or even explosive rage. This brings us to the third fascinating concept of the DNA master key. Let's see how consciousness hacks into us. The text uses a very cool, modern analogy to explain how consciousness physically takes over our biological system. It is like when a developer builds a house. The workers use a temporary construction key, This is just like the hereditary DNA passed down by your parents that provides the initial, temporary biological blueprint for your body. However, the moment the house is finished and ready for handover, you insert your exclusive, permanent master key, which is your consciousness, into the keyhole. Instantly, the internal lock is completely altered. The temporary key can never open this door again. In other words, the very moment you are conceived and life takes form, your consciousness aggressively moves in. It completely overrides your parents' DNA, taking full ownership of this biological house of flesh. From that moment on, what manipulates your six senses, your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, is entirely your specific personal consciousness. This is why your sensory perceptions and every tiny desire are deeply stamped with your unique consciousness. Now that we understand the mechanism, let us enter the fourth session and see how we get trapped in this loop. This could be described as a dystopian final state. Let us look at the contrast. When you attach a false definition to something, it is called yin yang wuming. This is a world apart from our originally peaceful true self. The text gives a super absurd yet realistic example. There was a man named Yajnadatta who, out of nowhere, suddenly realized he had never seen his own head. He instantly defined it as, "Oh my God, I have no head." He then fell into absolute panic and started running around like crazy. There's also the character Doran from the movie The Pig at the Crossroad. Even though he is already dead and in the intermediate state Bardo, he remains deathly bound by the definitions of his past life, stubbornly insisting on delivering medicine to others and deflecting responsibility. These are the tragic states of being trapped in an infinite loop by false definitions, refusing to let go no matter what. Interestingly, Elon Musk's favorite mental model, first principles thinking, is pointed out in the text as a modern, secular version of this awakening. It proves one thing: to see the true way things operate and perceive objective reality, you must ruthlessly strip away all human emotional colors, assumptions, and definitions. What a thing is simply what it is, without adding any personal emotional delusions. This is the sharpest, most authentic observation. So, what should we do? This brings us to the fifth section, starving the illusion. How do we swallow the red pill and escape? How exactly do we break free from this matrix that we built with our own hands? The text provides an ultimate, yet surprisingly simple solution. Your consciousness and those tight definitions you refuse to let go of are just like neural pathways in the brain, or a potted plant. Its existence depends entirely on the fact that you feed it every single day. You are constantly thinking about it, charging it with energy. If, starting right now, you stop giving it your attention, water, and sunlight, it will naturally become like an indoor plant someone forgot to water. It will gradually wither and dissolve. Concretely, how do you starve it? It's very simple. First, stop defining things as absolutely good or bad. Next, pull all your mental focus and emotional energy back. Stop charging these delusions. Refuse to add fuel to the cycles of greed, anger, and ignorance. When you stop maintaining them, these false neural circuits will naturally wither away. And all you need to do is quietly guard your true self, which possesses pure observational power. Shuzhen Chang, abandoning the arising and ceasing, guarding the truly eternal. The steps we just talked about perfectly echo a profoundly beautiful and esoteric quote from the Shurangama Sutra. If one abandons the arising and ceasing and guards the truly eternal, the eternal light will manifest before them. The sensory organs, the objects of perception, and the conscious mind will vanish instantly. This quote precisely summarizes our discussion today. When you discard those false definitions that never existed in the first place, and truly guard that unchanging, authentic self, all afflictions and illusory consciousness will, in that very instant, naturally vanish into thin air. The world before your eyes will become incredibly clear. As we come to the end of this commentary, I want to leave you with a thought-provoking question. Look at the things that are causing you pain, anxiety, or making you scratch your head in frustration right now. Ask yourself, do they truly exist objectively? Or is it merely because you define them to be that way? The door to the cage has actually never been locked. Which definition that binds you are you planning to stop feeding today? Let go. Once you let go, everything finds its natural peace.